Welcome to Is Anybody Listening to Me podcast with Azar and the Meat. We're here to discuss, finally, it's been a while, discuss some new liquors that we had an opportunity to try over the weekend. I think you guys will be pleased with what we have to say and what we're going to recommend. And we're going to dive into WandaVision, episode 3. It's kind of weird. We never actually went episode by episode with the show, but the way Disney Plus releases it, Big Meat's got some theories he wants to share, what's going on. And then we're going to dive into the whole championship weekend of the NFL, share our thoughts, discuss Rodgers' choke job, and then we'll dive into some fantasy talk. All right, let me welcome my partner, Big Meat. How's it going?
Good, Azar. So it is a nice podcast now to so everybody understands now from listening to the last podcasts that we have the Bucs and we have the Chiefs. And what did I say 2 weeks ago? Bucs and Chiefs. Bucs and Chiefs. And let's just see if I could go one more. And now we got the 2 week there before the Super Bowl. So we'll really get into the whole Super Bowl talk at next week's podcast. So we don't have our third man in here. So we definitely want to hear his take on it. Of course, he's probably crying in his soup because Rodgers isn't in the Super Bowl. But we'll have a full Super Bowl breakdown for next on the next podcast. But right now, I could just sit here and I can gloat a little bit. It's nice to see Brady back in the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, we need poor Jarvis. He needs a week to compose himself, and I think coming on a podcast tonight and watching you gloat about him being wrong and his man crush getting spanked, in a big game like that. It would be too much. So we wanted to spare him, and we'll save him for the breakdown of the Super Bowl. But I think.
Well, I don't know. He's not that. Of course, we all know, right? He loves Rodgers, but he does like Brady too, and he is a loyal Tampa Bay season ticket holder.
I think, but when you're right, it makes everybody else angry. So when we see you grinning,
yes.
So I have this unrational hatred. I've been rooting for Brady all season, but because you picked him to win, I've been rooting against him, and I have this blind hatred towards Brady. And I thought about it. I'm like, why am I so angry about Brady winning? It's actually a good thing. We said he's like a top 5 quarterback, and he's living, even though by fantasy he just missed top 5, just because he just doesn't run the ball like some of the other running backs. But from a throwing yardage, he had a great season.
He had a very good season.
Yeah, in real life though, it's just like you're just watching history being made. But because you're supporting it and rooting it and calling these games, I have to root against them, and I hate it. And actually. It's all you. It's just your grin. And now I have to bear it. I have to sit across from you on the Zoom call and stare at your face, gloating that
it feels
you
good.
were right.
It feels good. Well, I'm hoping in a couple of weeks that I'm right again and that the Bucs actually do win it. And then I could say, well, pick the Bucs all straight through, even through the end of the right before the playoffs started. I know we didn't have a podcast before the Redskins game there, but I was even calling it before then. Clearly they were going to beat the Redskins. I know, I had no worry there. And I just said, look, I think they're just going to run it just the way they finished the season. And I based on how the offense was they were starting to click. Everybody was healthy, and the defense was still, they were just coming together as well. They were playing stronger. And I thought it was meant to be, right? You beat Drew Brees, you beat Aaron Rodgers. Now you have a chance to beat Mahomes. Have the first home team or the first team to play in the Super Bowl in the host city. I don't know. It's one of those things. One thing too is.
So we're skipping the segments. We're going right into the NFL talk. So
I'm excited.
I'm excited. We'll just go into it. We're gonna shake things up because you're too excited.
Yes, I am excited because there is one thing that I've always thought about with Brady being in the Super Bowl with Mahomes. Right, that was always the matchup I thought that I would have been most excited about. I think Rodgers Mahomes would have been great too, but I think the fact that it's Brady and it's he was our guy, and the fact too, and I just read something today too about was it a tweet that Tyreek Hill posted before the season saying something like, "Oh, he wants to catch up to Tom Brady's Super Bowls and then end up getting his 7th." He thought the Chiefs, we're in prime position to win 7 Super Bowls, and And then Tom Brady retweeted that and said something like, "Yeah, it would be nice to get a seventh ring or something like that." So now they're all replaying that on social media. But I always thought, and we've talked about this before, about who's going to catch Tom Brady in our lifetime of 6 Super Bowls, even if he doesn't win right now, right? You look at all the other great quarterbacks that are at the end of their career. Drew Brees, he only has 1. Aaron Rodgers, he has 1. Ben Roethlisberger, he has 2. But they're all old. They're not gonna. Those guys are not gonna catch up to him. The one guy that could is Mahomes. He's still young, right? He's been great. They have a good enough team now that they could end up winning the next whatever so many Super Bowls. If he wins this Super Bowl, that's 2. He's only 4 away from Brady. It's hard to catch up to that, but it's not out of the question. That could happen. The fact that he's playing Brady in the Super Bowl, like for him to achieve that, and the one guy standing in his way is Brady, I think makes for such a great Super Bowl. Because if Brady wins, he's at 7, Mahomes is at 1, and it's going to be a lot tougher to get 6 more for Mahomes before his career is done rather than 4 more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like the whole thing is just pretty awesome.
It's funny because my son was asking me, do you think anybody will ever catch Brady? And I actually did say, if anybody could do it because he achieved his first one so young, it was Mahomes. Theoretically, if he wins, you're right. He's got his second. But the caveat that I told my son, I said the one thing that that would keep it from happening is, and it's always like happens this way, is that it becomes money. And if Mahomes starts demanding more money as he's more successful. So one thing about Brady that was unique under the Patriots regime was that he was willing to take pay cuts or not make the max salary to build a team around him. Now, Belichick never put the most expensive players around him, but if you think of what Mahomes has on his team, I don't know if someone like Travis Kelce will take a hometown discount. We don't know. Like maybe he would just so he can keep winning more championships. Maybe. You still got Tyreek Hill. Would he be willing to get paid less than what he's really worth just to win more championships? Mahomes signed for a while, so he's not an issue right now. So like all these other players are the wild card. If they can keep the unit together, I think they have an excellent chance. Because if he can stay like Kelce stays like Gronk did with Brady for a few years, plays at this level, and they still have Tyreek. I mean, I think Kelce is behind Mahomes is the second best player. He's clear and cut. Like as great as Tyreek is, Kelce is such a game changer on that offense right now. So I that would be the wild card is can you keep those guys together? So that's
I think it's the opposite kind of Brady situation. Where it was Brady taking the pay cut. Now Mahomes, he signed that big deal. He's got $300 million contract. I mean, he's already getting paid the big buck. He's not. I mean, after this contract is over, maybe he'll look for another contract.
Well, that's what more
I mean. The guys around him. They could stay. But if Mahomes is, we've seen Mahomes play, and he's so good that. Sure, if Kelce leaves, say if Tyreek Hill leaves, I still think he's going to be successful. I still think he's going to be a good enough quarterback. I mean, players come and go all the time through a career.
What if Andy Reid retires? Andy Reid's old. He's not a young guy like Belichick. Sure, Belichick went in a little younger.
Do you really? It's not. See, to me, it's not Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid puts a system in there that Mahomes can succeed at, but. You take Reid out there and you put in the other coach, you think Mahomes is all of a sudden just going to become a bad quarterback?
No. But Mahomes is executing the game plan, just like Brady. If Brady's like a great quarterback, he's executing the game plan, the strategy they put together. But you also got to find the players to put around. And the one thing when you watch that Chiefs game compared to the Rodgers and the Bucs game, that Chiefs team is so explosive and fast. Like they turn on a gear. It is just frightening how fast those plays go from just as soon as it gets out of Mahomes, as soon as the ball gets in Tyreek Hill's hands, and some of the other players they have, they go to like this gear where it doesn't seem like anybody in the defense can stop them. They're just that quick.
Yeah, they built their team around speed. That's,
And it's,
even the receivers they're drafting, it's all speedy guys. Yeah, I mean,
are they faster than the Rams of back in the day with Kurt Warner? Because they feel faster to me. Like, I know they were the greatest show on turf,
I know
but
Tyreek Hill is. I mean, he's faster. I mean, people say that he might be the fastest player of all time, like fastest receiver anyway. I
yeah,
mean, he's that fast. I mean, I think the guy Hardman is pretty fast himself.
yeah.
Sammy
There's some
Watkins, right,
highly,
when he's playing, like
yeah.
he's been known to be like some. But yeah, they do have a lot of speed. And for Kelsey, for a tight end, for a guy his size, like yeah, he's pretty fast at the tight end position as well. So
He's surprisingly always open. Like, I don't understand
yeah,
how the defenses don't play him tighter. And I don't know if it's because you have a mobile quarterback like Mahomes, and you have Tyreek Hill. Like, how, like, you got to. There's only so many
yeah.
safeties you can like give help to, but it just
Well,
seems like sometimes Kelsey is just like, are you guys not covering him? Do you guys not know that
yeah.
you got this
Well,
big?
he was good for many years now, but he was on another level this year. I feel like
Oh,
every time that they played, and you look at the ticker, the NFL ticker on the bottom, and you're like, oh, another 100 yards for Kelsey, another
yeah,
touchdown. It seemed like every game he was 100 yards and a touchdown
yeah.
minimum. And so yeah, he was great. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was because somebody like Tyreek Hill helps stretch the field and leaves the middle of the field open. Plus, they had CEH. I know he wasn't as good as you had hoped, Azar, but I think he was just another weapon in there that they had to kind of focus on for those little screen passes, the little dump passes, and
He's a
left the middle of the
functional
field
running back.
open.
Yeah, he did. He
Yeah,
did his job. I mean, he's not great fantasy, and I think it's not his fault. It's just that there's so many weapons. You can only feed so many people, and if you're going to put the ball in someone's hands, you're going to leave it in Mahomes' hands. You're not going to hand it to CH. So it's
yeah,
just a reality. We already talked about that for fantasy purposes. So no surprise, like, they crushed the Bills. The Bills looked like, other than that like first mistake that happened at the fumble, that the Bills scored right away, and you were like, oh, okay, maybe the Bills can get some momentum. But it looked like Josh Allen kind of did what we thought he would do. He got caught up in the moment and was trying to do too much, and I think
yeah,
it eventually caught him. And they were just outgunned. They were just the
yeah.
Chiefs were on a different level. And you know what? I give them credit for getting there. I don't think a lot of people had any thought that they were going to win. Like I said, I was rooting for them, but we all called it. It was such a long shot for the Bills to upset the Chiefs. The Chiefs are playing at a level.
Hmm.
It's just crazy level
Yeah.
right now, and the Bucs got their hands full. So let's talk about, since we're talking in the NFL, we're focusing on entertainment. So the most entertaining game, as much as the Chiefs won, and but the more entertaining game was the Rodgers versus Brady matchup. And that first half, Tampa was in full control. Like, it was almost to the point where, like, I didn't think Green Bay had a shot. And the only way Green Bay got back into it was a couple of bad throws. One one was a tip off of Evans' hands. I don't entirely. I think Evans should have caught it. Like, he's too talented not to catch that one that tipped off his fingers. But Brady did throw a couple bad ones that were just grotesque, and it put Green Bay back. It gave Green Bay the opportunity to come back, and I couldn't further understand. That's where the separation between when I think of Rodgers and Brady, and we talked about this before during the New Orleans game. If you make a mistake, Brady's going to make you pay the price. He will put up points on the board. He'll either score a field goal, he'll score a touchdown. But you make a mistake, Brady makes you pay. I was watching Rodgers and a couple of those mistakes, and it seemed like they were playing as if they were in the lead. Like, they didn't care. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, some minutes you're explosive, and then some minutes you're playing like you're in the lead and you're just trying to kill the clock. I didn't understand some of the game plan
Hmm.
when you had someone like Rodgers. It just didn't make sense in that game. It was
Yeah, I
frustrating.
mean, I think you got to give Tampa's defense a little bit of credit in that second half, because there were a couple of times where they sacked Rodgers. I think they got to him. How many sacks did they have him? At least 4 that I remember. Um, and so there was that one drive. I think it was the first touchdown for Green Bay in the second half. They were down. Gee, what were they down? 28-10, was it? And Green Bay seemed like they just marched down the field. It just seemed like they just could not stop Green Bay's offense. And I said, oh, yeah, they in like the prevent defense or whatever. They just trying to like hold them off just to let the clock run out. I said, all right, whatever. They score a touchdown. You're still up 28-17. And then, Brady throws like a terrible interception. He's kind of fallen back, ready to get sacked. He just kind of chucks the ball up there, gets intercepted. All right, now you have Green Bay ready to come back. I can't remember if they scored on that possession or not, but they eventually scored again. And then they missed the 2-point conversion. And you're like, holy shit, like they actually could pull this off. They could come back.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay did make a lot of stupid mistakes. I just remember watching the game. I said, what are they doing on offense? Like what is going on with Tampa's offense? Like they looked unstoppable in the first half, and it's like a completely different team. They're letting Green Bay come back into the game. And then it just, at the end of the game, it just, they managed to hold the team off, but it was closer. It was a lot more exciting than we thought it was going to be at halftime, when we were like, oh, Tampa Bay's got this in the bag. And, Rodgers was Rodgers. He played pretty well in that second half at times. It was a couple of drives where they stalled. And you're right, they didn't capitalize on the mistakes that Tampa made.
And that hurt him.
And that's where I look at Tom Brady throughout his career. He's a little bit methodical, right? I think he thrives on those sort of things, and he tries not to make a lot of mistakes. You see it here and there now. I mean, the guy is 43 years old, but overall, in general, I don't think he's going to try to do anything super flashy. He's going to try to just find the open receiver. Whereas I think Rodgers is like, no, I got a strong enough arm. I'm Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to zip that ball between two defenders, and that's just the way how he plays. It's a little bit of that Brett Favre gunslinger mentality. Tom Brady doesn't have that. No. Tom Brady is not known to be a gunslinger.
And that's what saved Green Bay. There was some plays that Rodgers really did pull out a first down out of his ass. Like there was some plays that I'm like, you see why Rodgers is great. Like he has this arm.
The one that was from the end zone, I think it was third down, and he scrambled out to he hit the receiver like right tiptoeing right on the sideline there for a first down.
That's one that I could think of. Yeah,
that play. I was like, I remember when he made that throw and that got caught. I said, how did Tampa Bay let that happen? Like you had him. Like you had his third down. He was just running for his life. I can't understand how a guy on the sideline. I could see maybe if he throws it towards the middle of the field or something, but there's no way that guy should have been open there. And that's just Rodgers' ability to make a play. His playmaking ability.
He was like laser accurate with some of those throws, and it saved. But like compared to the New Orleans game, I was watching that game with Green Bay, and Brady looked like whatever like super juice that he's taking with his TB12 method. It looked like he took an extra boost of it, because there was some throws that he was zipping, like with so much like oomph behind him. I was like, this doesn't look like Brady. Like where is all this strength and energy coming from? All of a sudden, I didn't see the last game. I felt like there was just something about the last game that he looked older and slower. And in this game, he was dropping dimes, like just throwing the ball. Then the second half happened, and I was like, oh, his juice wore out. Now he's tired. Like he is human. He wore out.
Man, his old man strength just kind of went away. But yeah, I've seen a couple of games this year where he was throwing the ball hard. But I think over a course of an entire game, when you're throwing 40, 50 passes, I think that's going to wear on him. Again, 43 years old.
Well, that's what I mean. But it's amazing. You could see it like the second half versus the first half, the way he was throwing. You're like, okay, you could see it. It was wearing on him. Yeah. The one thing I took away from this game that Brady almost lost it for them, because those mistakes were pretty bad, was the Tampa Bay's defense was amazing that whole game. Like they were at another level. And I was surprised at the end of the day. I was wondering, like, we know what Brady contributed to this, and everybody's talking about how Brady changed the dynamics of that team. But I wonder, like, how much credit do you give to Todd Bowles as a defensive coordinator? He played a hell of a game. That defense is playing at a different level, and it's not Arians. That's all Todd Bowles, right? That's his full name, right? Todd Bowles? Mm-hmm. Did I have the right name? Yeah, right? So he's a terrible head coach, but man, he's putting on a clinic as a defensive coordinator. He shut down Breeze. He shut down Rodgers. Like, I mean, and I know they have Sue.
They got a couple. I wouldn't say I mean, you could say they shut down Rodgers maybe in the first half and at times in the second half, but I mean, he still threw 350
Well,
plus yards or whatever and 3 touchdowns. And like, yeah, I mean, they were able to do enough to Rodgers to rattle him.
yeah, but I just think for what they were, what you expect, they did a hell of a lot better than I thought they were going to do. I just thought with Devontae Adams and Rodgers, they were playing at a level going into this game. I'm like, I don't know how they're going to stop them. And I know they didn't completely stop them, but they were putting some serious pressure on Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, it's just, I was impressed.
They did it. Yeah, they did it a lot in the regular season game too. I think in the regular season game they sacked him, I think 5 times in that game.
And what I didn't understand is another part of this game that was a little confusing to me is didn't the Tampa Bay, weren't their secondary injured? Didn't they lose another? They had one not start, had another one get injured, and there were times I'm like, I always know when Brady sees someone go down and they put the backup in, Brady attacks that person, that backup in the secondary. He just goes after them, and I don't understand. I felt like there were times I'm like, why are you guys still running the ball? They just put in their backup secondary player. Why are you guys not exploiting this more? Why? You have the talent. You have one of the best receivers, and you couldn't find a way to come up with a play to exploit and put that backup secondary player on an island and just expose them.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to try to remember exactly who was covering who during the game, right? So Winfield was the guy that was out of the game, and he wasn't playing great for them. And then another guy, Whitehead, was the guy that ended up getting hurt, getting injured and got hurt and left the game. And if you think of like Devontae Adams, every game, right? The guy, like the one guy on the team that you got to cover every game, it seemed like he was going off, scoring, over 100 yards, scoring multiple touchdowns. I kept saying, why aren't teams just double teaming this guy? And they did contain him. I know he scored that one short touchdown, but he only had 60 some odd receiving yards. Did have that one touchdown, but it wasn't Adams. You think of Scantling, right? He had over 100. I think he had 115 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, he had a good game.
Lazard, your boy Lazard, there had a decent game too. So maybe that was happening. Maybe Rodgers was trying to just hit those other guys, and they ended up doing well. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like they couldn't find a way to get Devontae one-on-one with somebody. Like I'm just trying to think. Like you have like this potent offense. There's got to be a way to get Devontae an opportunity and just get him up there. But it just didn't happen. And like I said, they were running the ball sometimes. And I'm like, why are you still trying to run the ball? Just put the ball in Rodgers' hands. Let him make it happen. Like get the. But I don't know. I just sometimes I just was watching it and I'm like, I'm a little confused with the play calling in this game a little bit. But hey, the better team won, and you got to give it to Brady. He played a great half. The defense played really well to keep Green Bay at, just enough to keep them at bay. And now it's the Super Bowl.
No pun intended.
Yeah. So it was a great game. And
Green Bay at bay.
Yeah, I was watching like I haven't like sat I can't say all season where I was just captivated. Like I was watching the Super Bowl. Like you were just watching every play, every minute. You wanted to see everything, and it was fun.
Well, now that Tampa is it's in Tampa, you got to think of the advantage that they have. They don't have to travel. They don't have to set up, hotels. They don't have to really do any of that stuff. They're already there. And I wonder, with old man Brady, that probably helps him a little bit. He's not really. He'll be a little bit more energy heading into the Super Bowl, especially with COVID too. Right, all the hoopla's not happening. Like they don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah,
right? You had a whole week like leading up to it with like what do they call it? The Tuesday night, the media day, right, on Tuesday, and then they got every day there's something else like kind of leading up to it. The fact that they don't have to worry about any of that stuff, and all they got to do is just focus on the football game. And the Chiefs can't fly in until Friday, 2 days before the Super Bowl date. So like they're going to be kind of, scrambling a little bit. Plus, I don't know how much of a big difference it would be, but the home field advantage for Tampa, that's also a little bit of an advantage that they have. Not there's going to be a lot of people on the stands, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans, right? There's going to be some, but it's not like a home team. You know what I mean? There's going to be people from all over the country flying in to watch this game. Jarvis maybe is one of them. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, you never know. But don't get too much into it. We got to save it for a Super Bowl preview. You can't I know.
I'm getting excited.
I want to break down the Super Bowl and the things and what I think could be the difference makers. And I know you're going to have your own theories, predictions.
Plenty of time next podcast.
Yeah, let's not get too caught up with it. Since we're on entertainment, let's finish up entertainment. Because it's funny, people are texting and asking our thoughts about what we thought about WandaVision, and we had an interesting discussion with the Oompa Loompa thing that our man Jarvis. So that's why because we're going to talk about this topic, we're gonna talk about it a little bit more deeper without the distraction of him trying to talk about the Mandalorian and suck us in now that he's finally watching the Mandalorian. So and we did win. It sounds like he's got Disney Plus going. So thank goodness he actually is. Finally did the right thing. So WandaVision episode 3 started off a little bit of a head scratcher, like the previous two, kind of, back into that retro theme. You know what? I always kept on calling it like that I Love Lucy theme, but you know what? It's Bewitched. It's like it's more Bewitched than it is anything. So it started off a little like that, but then I thought the episode was much better than the previous two. They were giving you a little bit more, and it kind of concluded with bringing it into I don't want to be a spoiler, but they talked about a character that she fought with.
Okay. I think at this point now, right? If you're listening to this podcast, then we'll give the spoiler warning now that we can talk a little bit more. Yeah.
Fast forward.
But when she brought up, if you haven't seen it, put your 20 minutes of time in and watch.
Yeah,
Wanda Sykes, as Jarvis likes to call her.
Yeah, oh God, it hurts that he was saying that. But when she brought up Ultron, I was like, okay, here we go. And so the like you could see the momentum finally starting to move forward. So that's exciting. Again, I'm still a little confused. Like, if you're an outsider, this is a real tough show to jump into a Marvel show because it's not. It's not easy to kind of follow what the hell's going on. You just don't understand. Like, why is this guy one day, one minute it looks like Vision? Like, well, who's Vision? Like, who is this guy? Like, you can't be outside. And then this girl, then she introduces Ultron. So if you know the movie, you're like, oh, I know what she's talking about. But if you don't, it's kind of confusing. Like, you don't understand the twin, her brother. There's not a lot of like flashing back or nothing to remind you of stuff that she dealt with. It's just interesting concept of a show.
Sure.
So,
this is not for somebody who's an outsider. You're right. If you're not a Marvel fan or whatever, it's not. You can't go into this show and say, A, understand what the hell's going on, and B, have that much interest in it because it's one of those weird shows that you can't you talk about like the Bewitched type theme the first couple episodes, and now they're into more of a Brady Bunch theme. It's like it's like those shows based in the 60s when it first started, or 50s and 60s. And now it's like in the 70s. And if you look at the trailer, they start getting into other time periods. Like there's going to be an episode where they're kind of based in like an 80s sitcom. So it's kind of like they're jumping back and forth, but every episode is giving you a little bit more. All right. A little bit more. So they're slowly building it up. And I know you have to just have patience because I'm trying to because I get it. All those parts, like the laugh track, and it's just, the silly humor. It's like, that we've watched over and over when we watched, old shows like Bewitched and the Brady Bunch. It's like, all right, we get it. We get what you're trying to get at, but I don't want them to throw everything at us at once from the first couple of episodes. I like that they're just giving little tidbits here and there. There's tiny little moments where you're like, oh, this guy is acting a little funny, or he says something, and then Vision kind of is like, hey, what does that mean? And then he starts kind of unravel some stuff, and then you see kind of like I almost thought it was a glitch on that last episode when he was questioning Wanda about something. He was on the couch, remember? And then all of a sudden it showed him like standing up again. I said, oh, did something happen to my Disney Plus? I was like, I wanted to like rewind it and be like, did I miss something? But that was all part of the show and what Wanda is doing. So I don't know. I like it. I look forward to it. I can't wait for the next episode. And actually, I did read something about Elizabeth Olsen being interviewed saying that episode 4 is the episode that everything starts to kind of take off.
Okay. And
So
that makes sense because it looks
hopefully
like
that's going to be, yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, and if it's not, then she's a liar.
Yeah.
But that's supposed to be the episode that really starts to open things up.
But you can tell she's influencing what's happening because anytime, like when Vision starts questioning her things, that like that scene you're talking about, she changed it and made him go back. I
like the beekeeper guy
Yeah.
from the first,
Yep.
so the second episode, like she did a whole rewind.
Yeah. So anytime that she feels threatened, she rewind. So it kind of now you're getting the sense, all right, maybe there's not an outside force. Maybe it really is she's stuck in her own mind doing this. But then when that scene, she launched a woman outside. So did she really create her own little town? Like, and it was interesting. Like,
Yeah.
So is she trapped in it, or did she create that and then
Yeah,
trying to get into it? It's just bizarre.
That's the biggest mystery, and that's for me is like what's sucking me in. Like I want to know how this thing ends because there are some scenes in the trailer when you watch it. There's some explosive things that happen. You see little snippets of them, but there's enough there that I'm like, oh, something big is going to happen. Here's my theory.
I'm not watching any trailers though. See, I once the trailer comes out, I don't go back in because I don't want any spoiling. Like I want to be going in fresh. Like just
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, but you've seen the trailer though.
No, I've seen it, but
I just don't remember.
Like you're funny. Like you're like, well, I know. Like you're anticipating because you've seen the trailer, you've watched it probably a couple times. Once I've seen the trailer, I don't go back to it because it's almost like cheating. Like it's like, well, I kind of can see that this is going to happen because I saw that in the trailer.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not trying to cheat. I don't want because I like to when it happens. I just want to be like when she launched that girl out, I was like, whoa, like all right, now we're getting somewhere. We're starting to feel like the gears are going in the right direction. But go ahead. You said you had a theory. Let's so we can wrap up the last theory.
Yeah. So there's a lot of theories out there, right? And it goes back to that one line that guy Herb, when he was by the bushes there, and he was with the chain, right? He was cutting he was hedge trimming, right? And he was going, and he was talking to one of the neighbors there, right? And he started to say something like, "Oh, what's the big deal if Geraldine's in the house or whatever?" And he said something along the lines of, "It's because we are all," and he got interrupted by his neighbor there. That's like, "Oh, don't say anything." Yeah. So that's the big thing right now on the internet. Like, what was he going to say? And a lot of people feel like he was going to say trapped. That's kind of like what people are thinking. It's because we're all trapped in this bubble here, and we're all mind warped from Wanda or whatever it is. I think. Now here's the theory that what possibly could be happening. Of course, this isn't a spoiler. I don't know anything. I'm just kind of spitballing here.
Going full nerd.
What if I'm going full nerd here? What if they're trapped in some kind of purgatory? What if all those people in there are dead, and including Vision, because we know he died, right? And Wanda is the only one that's kind of, because there's some subtle hints, right? Even in the comic books, there's like a devil character that's like there's some parts to it, right? And the neighbor there keeps referring to her husband Ralph. So they're all saying like maybe her husband's like the devil, and that's why you haven't really seen him yet. And so the only people that can go into that are those sword members, like the Geraldine lady that got thrown out, and Wanda. Like everybody else is considered dead, and that's probably what he was trying to say. It's because we're all dead. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting theory if that's what's happening, because there's little subtle hints when they talk about the devil. They mentioned they've dropped the devil's name a couple times in there. So yeah, it's interesting if that's it, and that's kind of what maybe is explaining everything, and maybe all those people died from some event in a past Marvel movie. Maybe they were like the dead people of Sokovia from Age of Ultron. Who knows? Whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's just kind of an interesting theory that I have. No true spoiler there, just something that might be possible.
The stuff that I just keep reading is that she's tied into Doctor Strange, into the next Doctor Strange movie, and that somehow, I don't know if we talked about this on the last podcast, that Doctor Strange is the only one that could really free her from her own mind. Did we talk about that in the last podcast?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so the stuff that
But
I
you
read
are
on,
right. It is tied into the next Doctor Strange movie.
yeah. So it's interesting. I haven't read that theory. We'll see. Let's wait till after week 4. Like again, I think that's the kind of it's a weird show, but because of these little hints, you want to get sucked in. What I don't get, and hopefully week 4 goes into it more, a lot of references to Hydra, and I don't remember why Hydra. She didn't really battle Hydra with Age of Ultron, and in all the other Avenger movies, when she came into the storyline, I don't
She was
remember.
created, so she was tested by Hydra. Hydra was the one that basically kind of gave her powers from the Mind Stone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there is a connection there. She was kind of created by. Remember, Hydra was kind of keeping her and her brother captive, and then they kind of tried to use them against the Avengers. And
Okay. Because I remember that guy. He wasn't a Hydra agent. That is the one that tricked her into.
Who's that?
No, that's
Strucker?
no. I'm mixing up the movie lines. The guy that caused Avengers Civil War. He was a Sokovian guy.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But
yeah, it wasn't him. Yeah, it was way back before. I think it was towards the end of which movie was it? Was it Winter Soldier? At the end of Winter, I think it was at the end of Winter Soldier, before Age of Ultron, when they introduced the
okay. I'll have to go back
Scarlet
to that.
Witch, and
okay.
Yeah, and then I also think too, like those commercials that they air, it's the same 2 people in all those commercials that they're showing. It's the same guy and it's the same woman that's in those commercials. And I've read too that could be her parents in those commercials.
Oh,
'cause
interesting.
It's the same thing. Yeah, so it's that's why it leads me to think like, hey, maybe they are in some kind of purgatory, and and they can't get out because they're all dead.
Yeah.
No Vision's dead, so it all kind of makes sense there.
There could be people in her past life, just people that in her life, or
and there's
people
rumors,
that she killed as a Hydra agent. Maybe she killed them and she can't get them out of her head because she killed them.
Yeah,
So.
and there's rumor too that the Quicksilver, her brother, might make an appearance at some point throughout the season.
Oh, nice.
If he does, we know he died. So, yeah, it all just kind of seems like it's all making sense. But
yeah,
again,
well, I know the family thing is because the twins were born, and that sort of was supposed to represent her and her brother. Like that was the whole big deal about the twins.
Yeah.
All right.
I do have to say though, I do like their characters now. I think more than ever. I think during the Avengers and whatever, we were like, whatever, Scarlet Witch and Vision. Felt like they were always kind of like side characters. But now I'm actually more intrigued about their characters now because I think they're so good on screen together.
Yeah, no, they have a good chemistry. They did a good job with it. So we'll wait for the we'll review next. We'll touch on episode 4 next week, even during our Super Bowl preview. We'll touch on it, and then Jarvis can make his jokes about Wanda Sykes and keep him happy. You know what? I did want to give a little thing that I did read that I was actually excited to read. So I found out that Thor: Love and Thunder, which is the next movie in the Thor franchise, Christian Bale is supposed to be in that movie as one of the villains. So that's pretty cool. That's like a pretty high caliber actor to bring in, and that character they're saying that I read today is the Christian Bale character could be the next quote unquote like Thanos in that Marvel universe. Like he might play a role not only in this movie but in multiple movies that they're going for their new series. Like he's going to be that villain that keeps reappearing in the background in the other movies. So
he's such a good actor that he could. I think that this is what a lot of movies do. It's like if the fans that watch the movies like that character so much, then they bring those characters back and they have a little bit of longevity, right?
Yeah.
You think of like the guy that played the Joker in the DC movie. The guy was just an awful Joker.
Yeah.
In Suicide Squad, right? Nobody really liked him. He's not coming back for anything. Like he's not, if people liked him and he played a good Joker, you think he wouldn't be in the next, lined up for the next bunch of DC movies. So that's why there's high hope for Christian Bale. Like he's a good actor and people loved him so much in so many of the roles that he's played in. You're right. Maybe he could be that next guy that people love. We talked about the villains. You love to hate or you love to hate the certain villains,
Yeah.
right? You almost kind of root for them. You want them to be on screen.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I agree.
Loki, the guy that played Loki, was the same way. You know, he was a good character. He was a great character, and everybody wanted to see more of him. And he's been in like 6 Marvel movies. So
Yeah. No, and he's getting his own series. Uh,
yep.
No, I agree with that, and so that should be exciting. But the one thing about on the last closing thought on that is it seems to me like what Marvel does is like they have this storyline in these movies. It's already planned out, like where this is going. I don't even know if it matters if a fan cares if Christian Bale is good or not in it. It seems like if this is going to be the villain that they want tied into all the movies, it's like this has already been laid out. There's a map that Marvel is following. So hopefully he does a good job in it, and they don't have to swap him out. And they keep this. That's the great thing about the Marvel franchise is that it's been consistent with all the same actors over and over again. So it makes a nice flow. I don't know if you can say that about the DC Comics movies. Like you always get a different Batman. You get a this.
Mm-hmm.
It's
You've seen it a couple times with Marvel. I mean, different Hulk, right? Early on, there was a different guy playing the Hulk, and now
no, but I mean, with the modern Hulk, I mean, yeah, I'm talking about the Hulk for like the Hulk movies before weren't really tied to this series of movies.
Well, yeah, well, not the one from 20 years ago. That one was awful, but the one with Edward Norton, that's tied into this.
Is it really?
That was tied into the Marvel. Yeah. I mean, it's
I thought it started with Iron Man first. I thought that came before Iron Man.
No, it was Iron Man, and then the Incredible Hulk came out after that.
Did it really?
It is tied
I always thought
in.
It was before.
No, it was after it. But if you go and watch that now, like everybody says this, because people who want to catch up on all the Marvel movies, they're like, well, you got to watch them all to understand them. The Incredible Hulk is always the one that comes up that's like, you know what, you really don't need to watch that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a standalone film, even though it is tied into this whole universe. But that's the one movie that's just kind of, you could skip that one. You don't really need to watch that.
Yeah, the only other guy was the guy that played Iron Man's sidekick, Brody, that played War Machine. He changed from Iron Man 1 to Iron Man 2. And obviously the Black Panther is going to be a new guy to fill that role, which I don't even know how you're going to do that. He did such a great job. Man, you got that talking about like pressure to replace.
I heard they're not replacing him. I heard they're just going to move forward. I don't know how they're going to write that into the story, but I heard they're not going to recast him to play that.
So he's just going to die off, and there's going to be a new Black Panther.
I'm thinking that's what's going to happen. That's what the guy said.
Oh, interesting.
The head of Marvel there, Feige, but because he's like, well, Chadwick Boseman, like he's Black Panther. We're not going to recast him. Like we can't replace him to play him. So we're just going to move forward with it.
I agree with that. I think it'd be too awkward to do it. Yeah. I wouldn't even like it. I'd be like, you'd be judging him, comparing him the whole time to the other his predecessor. Right.
I'm sure they could film a scene where he's Black Panther, right? You have some stunt double in there, right? And he ends up dying that way.
Yeah.
And just say, oh, he killed him off in a big opening scene of a movie, and then that's how they end.
They can CGI a face, and mask comes off, and it's him, and he's dead, but that's just. It's kind of
a little morbid too.
I was gonna say it's kind of crude. You're like, all right, I don't know if his family would be thrilled that you killed him off and you're showing his face. Like, it's just let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
All right. So we did entertainment. Let's just jump into the alcohol. So we had a chance to get together before the big Conor McGregor fight, and Big Meat was very excited to introduce a new beverage that he wanted to share with the group. The Crown Royal Salted Caramel. So, Meat, I'll let you talk about it and give your little thoughts on it.
Yeah, the fact that you said caramel instead of caramel, like that time Jarvis called you out on that. It was. I went to the liquor store that day, and I wasn't really searching for anything in particular. I'm always just kind of browsing up and down the aisle to see if I find anything new and exciting. And we've tried the Crown Royal honey before, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I remember just saying,
have a honey?
It was almost 2 years ago. It was one of our first podcasts that we did. I remember just bringing it in, and
they had an apple.
Was it apple? It wasn't honey?
Because I looked up to see what Crown Royal had for flavors, They have a regular. They have a Crown Royal Black. They have apple, maple, vanilla, peach, and salted caramel. I didn't see honey.
Maybe it was apple. It was one of the flavors. I just
was
remember.
gross.
Like I said, it was a while back, and it was not good. I did not like it at all.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a lot of high hopes when I bought this, but I said, you know what? It's different. How many times have we had a caramel flavored whiskey? So I decided to get it. I know our boy R3 was at this event too, and I know he likes his Crown Royal, not because it's
namesake.
Yep. And so he so I said, all right, you know what? I'll bring this over and I'll share it with the guys there, and that way we could all try it at the same time and kind of get our opinions on it. And I liked it. I thought it was really good. It did taste. I don't know if I really tasted the caramel that much in it. I don't know if you did when you tried it.
Well, that's because you had a lot of cocktails before.
That could have been too, and
so
everything just kind of tasted.
Yeah. I did taste it, and it was actually smooth. And I don't think of Crown Royal as a smooth drink. Like I always you always know about Crown and ginger, and R3 and I talked about that. Like I just don't like Crown Royal. It's not something that I would pour a glass and sip. But the salted caramel is actually good. It's again, I don't know what to compare it to. It's no peanut butter whiskey. It's not our.
Yeah, that's a good drink. Yeah. Which, by the way, which reminds me of another good drink, but we'll finish this this one just based on the peanut butter whiskey there. But the one comparison I would say, not in terms of taste, but in terms of its smoothness, was the Jim Beam vanilla. Like when I drink Jim Beam vanilla, it's you don't get that hard whiskey taste to it. It's goes down smooth. It's tasty. Felt like this was very similar to that.
Yeah, it was a great. I think if you're gonna have an after dinner drink, I thought it was pretty good. I like I said, I'm not a fan of Crown Royals, but if I got a box of this or a bottle of this, because yours came in a box, which I thought was interesting. It wasn't just like, but that's because it has that little sock thing that they come in. But I think it was worth it. Was it expensive compared to the other Crown Royals?
$25. I didn't think it was that bad.
No. Is that what normal Crown goes for?
I think so. I mean, that's kind of what we're paid, just kind of a standard across, all the bottles of Jim Beam and Jack Daniels, and I mean Screwball, right? That's like what, $40, right? It's a little bit more expensive, but yeah, for what it tasted like, I thought it was fair. It was a fair price.
If you look at it, if you can't afford a bottle of Screwball, money's a little tight. Hey, we're still in COVID. If you didn't get a stimulus check and maybe you couldn't afford it, there's nothing wrong with getting yourself some salted caramel. It was good. It's definitely a sharing.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned the flavors earlier. I'm on their site now.
Apple, maple, vanilla, peach. I can't imagine peach tasting that good, but
I see peach, and I see vanilla, I see apple, and I see another one here that's actually looks very interesting. Texas mesquite.
Oh, that would have a smoky flavor to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be interesting because if you're not a fan of that smoky flavor that like Johnny Walker, I don't know if you'd like that with a Crown Royal. Like that'd be interesting. So is there a honey? Then maybe there is a honey because what I found didn't have a honey as an option. But
I don't see it. I don't see it on here, and I don't remember seeing it, to be honest, at the store either.
Okay.
So,
but anyways, so it was a tasty drink. So we recommend it. Again, Big Meat saying it's $25. But at that time, when we were there together, our buddy Antifa Boy hooked us up with he wanted us to try a beer for the podcast. He saved us one of it. It's one of those, I think it must come in like in a 4-pack. I'm not sure. I forgot to ask him if it was a 6-pack or one of those 4-pack micro brews. But he was very generous. He let us try his, it was from Riverwalk Brewing. And I have the official name because I don't want to screw it up and get called out on it because that would be wrong. But it's Riverwalk Brewing's Storm Door Porter. So Big Meat and I split it. It's basically a seasonal ale with vanilla and spices. And just a little background for you people, if before we review the beer for you, Riverwalk Brewing is actually out of Newburyport, and it actually has a restaurant attached to the brewery, so you can actually have dinner, and does have outdoor dining during COVID. I know it's cold right now, But when I read that, when I was doing some research on the company, it was actually pretty cool because I'm going to mention they have some other flavors of beer on tap that it might be a fun guys trip to go out and grab some beers and go grab some food. I didn't check out the menu, but the fact that it's in Newburyport, that'd be a great summer location to kind of pit stop during the
Mm.
summer and have a drink. Hopefully it's near the water because I think most of Newburyport's near the water. Most of the businesses are. So hopefully it has a good location that you're right on the water. So it's on Parker Street in Newburyport if anybody's
Yeah,
interested.
yeah, and I've been to Newburyport many times. But gee, I wish I knew. Like, if I knew of the brewery around there, then I would have certainly stopped by there and try some. But yeah, yeah, I don't remember ever seeing this beer before, but it was good.
Yeah, it was good.
It was really good.
It's definitely
Um,
like a winter beer, and they actually promote it as like a winter beer. So, um, but it's got that. I don't know. It's not a winter lager. It's actually smoother than I thought a Sam Adams winter lager. So I really liked it. So it was a good
mm,
recommendation from our buddy Antifa Boy. So
it was a good. It was good mixing the well, not so good mixing the porter beer with all the whiskey that I was drinking that night. And
so I was gonna
but
say you probably don't remember what it tasted like. Like you remember, you probably thought, well, it was smooth,
I
but
don't
you
have a
probably have.
lot of yeah, yeah. No, I don't. There's not a. My memory is a little hazy on it, but I do remember drinking it
Yeah,
and giving it a thumbs up and saying it was pretty good. And 6.3%
yeah.
alcohol.
Well, you know what's interesting is that when I was looking up their other beers, it actually was one of the ones with the highest liquor content because they actually. Um, and I thought about this because I remember the time when R3 was cutting back on some of the booze. They actually have a beer called Cut Back Pale Ale, and it's actually only 3.8% alcohol. So if you try to cut back on drinking, and Big Meat, this might be a recommendation for you too. You can have a lot of them. There's not a lot of alcohol, so it will keep you out of getting into trouble. So
That's right.
so they had that, and they actually had one that's a Thanksgiving theme, which I want to try to find next year. It's called Pass the Sauce, and it's got like a cranberry ginger flavor to it. But it looked like it was Thanksgiving themed fall beer. And then they have one that they came out with for in the spirit of the COVID 2020. They call it Hindsight 2020, and it's a Russian Imperial Stout that sounded good. And then
Hmm.
they have uh, one called the Black Ox Dunkel. It's like one of those chocolatey beer, like I think it's a stout, smooth and chocolatey stout. So they have a lot of options, and they actually sell them on tap at their location. So I think when COVID's over, I have a couple breweries I want to hit for dinner and drinks. 603 Brewery here in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and I want to hit this Riverwalk Brewing. So maybe we'll have to do a podcast in one of the restaurants.
That would be great. That would be nice. Hey, we've been talking about that for so long, and stupid COVID hit, and
Yep.
we just couldn't do it. And for those out there that maybe I've reminded them as well, we haven't forgot about the buffalo wing eating competition between Jarvis and myself. That will happen. It just put on hold. Just put on hold for
It's
now,
coming.
and
It's
we
coming.
are building up our tolerance for that.
Yep.
So
All
yeah,
right.
it'll be exciting when all this craziness is over and
Yeah.
we can
So
actually
there.
do all the things that we wanted to do.
Exactly. I know. I agree. I agree. So those are a couple of recommendations for alcohol. It's been a while, but those are a couple of good ones. Uh, so go out and try them and let us know what you think. Uh, so moving on, Big Meat, because we said we're going to do a quicker podcast today because we had a couple long ones, so we are trying to wrap it up. So for fantasy, not a lot of news that's exciting right now. I mean, we're just coaches are being hired. We talked about that already. GMs are being hired. The only thing that we know, Philip Rivers retired, so that's big news. So Indianapolis is in the hunt for a new running quarterback. Uh, and the news that came out recently before this podcast, between the last one, was the Matt Stafford news. Is Matt Stafford is looking to get traded, and from what I last read, teams are already starting to reach out to get Matt Stafford on their team. I know we were going to talk about it from a fantasy perspective, but if I was going to ask you which team, if if they got Matt Stafford that is a hunt for a quarterback right now, like how much do you think Matt Stafford elevates their team? Because is Matt Stafford the real deal? Was it just Detroit that was holding him back, or is Matt Stafford, is he going to make that much of a difference with some of these teams? Like if he came to New England, like there's a talk, because we're from New England. If he came to the Pats, let's just say from a fantasy perspective, let's just play this game. How much of a difference do you think Matt Stafford makes for the Patriots offense?
It's hard to say because it is Matt Stafford, and it's hard to say whether he suffered because he was in Detroit all those years. There were some years he put up big numbers. He had 5,000 yard seasons before. Like he put up numbers, and he's talented. He was a number 1 overall pick, but is he just fool's gold? Is he just the guy that sexy guy out there that's like, oh, the quarterback that's number 1 overall pick? He's still fairly young. He's had some nice seasons, but he's played in Detroit, but put him on a good team and he's going to take off.
Yeah.
It's so hard to say. I mean, if you're asking me too, if he goes to the Patriots, he'll be better than Cam, and the offense will automatically be better just because he's on that offense.
Yeah.
Is he going to throw 35 touchdown passes and 4,800 yards? I don't know. Not with that offense. I mean, if the Patriots end up getting, a couple other guys, whatever, through free agency or trades, then maybe I could see it happening. But at this point, I'll accept most anybody over Cam Newton.
But Matt Stafford's like he's consistently, unless he's injured, he throws between 4,000 to 5,000 yards. I mean, he only had 1 year he had over 5,000, but he had 41 touchdowns that year, and I think that was the year he was still with Megatron. So he had an incredible receiver with him in his earlier years, but he hasn't thrown. I'm looking at his stats in the past 10 years. He threw that in 2010. He threw 6 touchdowns. 2011, he threw 41, and then it's in the 20s. He broke 30 once in that 10 years. Other than that year, he had 41. He had 32. That's when he's peaked out, and that was 2015. Ever since then, 29, 21, 19, 26. I don't think he's as prolific. He throws a lot of yards, but he's I don't know.
That could be just the system he was in too. You're throwing the ball all the time. Then
So I'm just wondering, like
a lot of yards.
I mean, could he thrive somewhere? He could. I just don't know if he's going to be the big game changer that the hype around him is. That could he make a difference in the Pats? Absolutely. He's got to be better than Cam Newton, but I wonder if he does land in Indianapolis with T.Y. Hilton. He's got a great running back in Jonathan Taylor. He's got a great they got a great third down back to come out of the backfield. Would that offense thrive with someone like him, like in that offense? Would he be better off in an offense like that? Where a rebuild of the Patriots, I don't know if he's going to be prepared for that. I guess, if he goes to the Jets and they're rebuilding still, would he thrive? Would he thrive in the I don't know. I think if I was him, I would want to go where I can just plug and go, and there's a lot of talent already there. And even Houston doesn't have a lot of talent. I wouldn't want to go to Houston. So
no. And if he wants out of Detroit, and he's 32 years old, he's looking to, plug and play somewhere, kind of like a Tom Brady situation. Put me in a decent offense or a good offense, and let him just try to salvage the rest of his career here. And one thing you've noticed too throughout his career, he's not a winner. He's not a winner.
No.
He's got some talent, and he's had some big seasons, but it's been a long time since he's had those big seasons. He did have 1 year he threw for 4,967 yards, so he was right there on the cusp of throwing for 5. But again, that was back to back. That was 2012, 8-9 years ago. So it was a while. His completion percentage has always been solid, but look at his win-loss record year after year. It's not good. It's not good at all. So yeah, I don't know. He's just one of those guys. He doesn't really excite me all that much, but if he's the guy that, if the Patriots weren't going to get, let's just say Aaron Rodgers, if Patriots weren't going to draft high somewhere in the draft. Maybe they move up and they get one of the stud, rookie quarterbacks and try to like build around that guy. And it's an option. It's like your last, you have choices between Stafford and Cam Newton. You know the answer there. It would be, I guess, it would be Matt Stafford, but I wouldn't be excited over it. I wouldn't be like, all right, Stafford's here, let's build around him. I just wouldn't be that excited. I would if it was Deshaun Watson.
Oh yeah,
I would be excited for Deshaun Watson. I'd be excited for obviously Aaron Rodgers, even though he's older now. But I'd love to see Aaron Rodgers in a Patriots uniform. I don't see any of that happening. I think Cam Newton's coming back. I think Brady, for some reason, Belichick has a stiffy for Cam Newton.
I don't know.
I think he loves Cam Newton. I think he loves his attitude. I think he loves his leadership in the locker room.
I think
he's got something to prove. Like he's like, oh, here's the guy I brought in. I could win with this guy. I don't know. Whatever it is, Belichick had nothing but great things to say about Cam Newton. And every time somebody asked him, like, yep, Cam Newton's our quarterback. He wouldn't even take the time of benching him and putting Stidham in there, even in games where they were being blown out. Like he was hesitant to do that.
Yeah.
Because of his love of Cam Newton.
Yeah.
I just think Cam's coming back. He's not going to ask for a lot of money. And I think that's where he's going to go.
Oh, that'd be a disaster. I think they'll bring him back, but they'll give him some competition. He's not going to be their only option. They'll mess around with something.
Maybe they like I said, they draft a quarterback. If they don't move up and they stay, what are they picking? 14th or 15th, right around there. If they grab a quarterback at that spot, some might say that guy Mac Jones might be there from Alabama. He might be the guy around that middle of the first round there. And they keep Cam Newton and they just stash Mac Jones, on the bench and let Cam Newton do his thing. And who knows? I don't know. I just don't have high hopes. I don't see Belichick being that type of coach to come to say, oh yeah, I'm going to try to bring in Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
Or Stafford.
That's a shame. It'd be disappointing. You would hope they would try to jump. Because I'm wondering, like, if the Jets move on from Sam Darnold, do you take a shot at him and try to develop him? Like, does a team take – because he was on a bad team, and he had flashes that he had talent. He's just on a bad team, bad head coach with Adam Gase. I don't know. I'm just – because look at what happened to Tannehill when he got away from Gase, and he went to another team. He looked awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, he's the one exception there. Tannehill leaves, and all of a sudden he's had two really good back-to-back seasons.
Yeah. And,
you never know. You never know with any of these guys. Like, I mean, there's been talk Miami is looking to maybe even get, like Watson said, he wants to go to the Jets, and his second option is Miami. What are they going to do with Tua?
Trade him. Trade him to Houston.
Like that's it, one and done. Like they draft him 1 year, and they're ready to move on from him. It's just kind of
yeah.
Like,
well, you know what?
Talk about being impatient.
They got the cap space for it, so they can bring on a stud and say, why worry about developing Tua? Let the Houston deal with that. We already got a guy that's talented, so bring him on. Like, it'd be interesting. And I was looking at more of Matt Stafford's stats. So when he had Calvin Johnson, he retired in 2015. So from 2010 to 2015 was Calvin Johnson. He was there longer. He was there from 2007. But I think Matt Stafford started in 2009. But anyways, when you look at 2010 to 2015, you're talking about Megatron was throwing up number. He was always over 1,000 yards. There was 1 year he put up 1,964 yards, and that was in 2012. And the year before that, he put up 1,681. So Matt Stafford's numbers kind of correlate a lot with when having Megatron as your freaking receiver. That kid, the guy was a beast, but he didn't have a lot of touchdowns. It was interesting. There was that 1 year he had 16 touchdowns. And then it was like 5, 12, 8, 9. So it was only a couple of years in that 5-year stretch he was in double digits, but he did have a stud receiver. So I wonder if a lot of Stafford is just had a great receiver. So
sure. And then again, really since then, who has been his best receiver since then? Not a lot there.
So he does throw a lot. I just don't think he throws a lot of touchdowns, unfortunately. And they never had a running game. So, maybe Matt Stafford is is like that big Belichick, like he's that what is that expression? Diamond in the rough kind of thing. Like,
Diamond in the rough.
yeah, like
Kind of like
he's
the
this
guy who
guy
was.
just not in a great system, and then maybe Josh McDaniels can help rebuild him and just give him like reinvigorate him. So,
Yeah,
and I
kind of
can see
that dying
Belichick.
breed of pocket passer quarterback that, he runs a little bit, not that much, but he runs a little bit, but he's mostly a pocket passer. And maybe that's what Belichick is looking for. Who knows?
Well, that's what the
I
system is better designed for. Clearly, the Cam Newton thing, it wasn't designed for that offense. Like, he was great at running when he was on the one, but you could only go so far with a guy that just can run the ball. You need someone that can sit in the pocket and make the plays downfield, and just Cam Newton can't do that. That's why I think the Cam Newton era, unless he's going to be like that, if he's willing to stay on the roster to go in for trick plays or wildcat plays or things like that. But
Well, and then it always comes down to money. Belichick is not going to pay any quarterback big money. He's just not going to happen.
but
He's
it might
not
not
going to.
be.
It's not.
But it might not be him. Kraft likes to win. I can see Kraft saying, "Look, what are we doing here? Like this is
Yeah,
humiliating.
but
You let Brady go. I trusted you. We let Brady go because you said he was done. He wins the Super Bowl. I'm not. Like I could see Kraft putting the hammer down on this. I don't think he's going to stand back and."
I think Kraft also likes his money too, and I think Kraft might say, "All right, we'll spend up to the cap. We'll spend whatever we need to spend, but it can't. There's not unlimited budget either." So I think Belichick's there to say, "Look, yeah, you want to bring in a great quarterback. You want to sell merchandise. You want to whatever you want to do. Great. There's going to be less money for the rest of the team, and that's just not how Bill Belichick builds his team. And I think Kraft isn't going to all of a sudden just be like, no, we're just going to do whatever we want to do because Belichick is he hasn't proven over the years that he can win Super Bowls. I don't know. I just don't see
But
Kraft.
but your theory is a little flawed there because if that was the case, then why did they trade Garoppolo? If all the rumors are true, he didn't want to trade Garoppolo. He wanted to get rid of Brady and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And Kraft is what we have heard. Kraft intervened and wanted Brady to stay. So,
Well, yeah, but that's because maybe Brady was being unhappy and Belichick was trying to phase him out and Kraft is still buddies with Brady. He didn't want to do that to Brady and he went to Belichick and said, "Look, you could still win with Brady here." And he did, right? They still won
yeah.
a Super Bowl with him after Garoppolo was gone. And I think a little bit was Belichick kind of sticking it back to him and said, "Fine. You know what? You want Brady to still be my quarterback. I'm going to trade Garoppolo, and now we don't have a future at quarterback. So then when Brady leaves in a couple of years, we're going to end up being screwed." So
And they are screwed. They are screwed. But that goes back to my point, though. I think Kraft can be influential. I think Kraft can go and say, "What is the plan?" Like what you told me was going to happen didn't happen. Brady was still good. We should have re-signed him. Who's our
yeah,
quarterback?
but I think that was more of a loyalty to Brady more than anything. I mean, you've heard him talk about Brady like as if he's his own
I know.
son, and
But like I said,
I think he's just the rare exception. There's nobody else on the team that he's not going to go up to him and say, "Hey, I love Cam Newton. I built such a great friend. He's like a son to me now. Like we can't get rid of Cam." Like he's not at that level. Brady was the only guy that you could say that about. So he's just a rare exception.
I can't imagine Kraft is happy that what product Belichick put on the field. And this is an owner that has been used 20 years of winning. And I don't think he's going to be happy doing a slow, like another 5-year rebuild.
I could see that happening, but I think he's also got to trust the process. The Patriots were at shambles last year, top to bottom, right? They lose Brady. They didn't have any other quarterback to try to bring in. They found Cam Newton and was like, "Oh, maybe he's the guy."
Yeah.
They didn't have any cap space. They couldn't bring anybody else in. It was just a mess. It was just a mess. This year they do have money, so let's see what happens in free agency. Let's see what happens who they end up bringing in. And if a quarterback does come in, if it is Stafford, and he doesn't ask for that much money, he could come in. I'm sure Belichick would love to have Stafford in there. But if he comes in and say, I want to be $30 million a year, not a chance. There's no way.
That's why I see like more of a Sam Darnold, like someone like a project. Or if Garoppolo does get cut from the 49ers. I know people say, well, if there's value, Belichick will find it and bring it back. Like that, I think I agree with you there. If he could do it on the cheap, he will. But I'm thinking like I can see Kraft putting some pressure. Like we got to spend. Like get the talent here. We need the talent here because I don't think he wants to see his franchise lose that energy and the momentum that he's built over all these years to all of a sudden, because they are the main franchise in Boston. Like it used to be the Red Sox. It clearly is the Patriots now. He's not going to want to lose that. And watch the Patriots go 5-11 or all that kind of nonsense.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, but I think this is more of a conversation for next season, for next year after the season's over. Because one season, one year, you lose Brady, you're bound to not have a good team eventually, right? It's like they can't win the division every single year, even though they kind of have for the last almost 20 years.
But they could probably win it again. I mean, Brady has been playing at a level. They were wrong. Everybody's wrong. He's playing at a level.
Could have though. Like I don't know. I don't know if Brady was not throwing 40 touchdown passes in on this Patriots team. The offense just wasn't good enough. Like I said, they didn't have any money to spend. They could have brought Brady back, and if Brady, decided to go on the cheap again and say, all right, we'll give it another year. What are they going to do? They had no money. They had no money to spend. Maybe they would have. I'm sure he would have played better than Cam Newton.
Yeah, but you say that, but the article came out today that the Patriots were in on Diggs, and I guess the timing, the way it landed, Brady left, or whatever it was, there was some weird timing that when Brady made his decision, Diggs made his decision to go to Buffalo. So you never know.
I can't remember exactly the timeline because they were able to free up a little bit of cap space, but I can't remember if it was before Brady went to Tampa or after. Remember it was like they got they freed up some money from the Aaron Hernandez thing, right? They were kind of tied to something going on there, and they freed up some money. And then COVID, a lot of the players that opted out, that freed up some more money. So they eventually had a little bit of money to spend, but it was too late at that point. It was like there was no free agents out there to pick up, and so I
mean, they couldn't even get was it Cole Beasley was the guy was it him that they tried to get to? Was it Cole Beasley first from Buffalo? There was another receiver they were trying to get, and I remember he opted not to come to the Patriots. Like he chose. No, it wasn't. It was for the Titans, wasn't it?
That was a couple of years ago. You're thinking of Humphreys. Adam Humphreys.
We couldn't even get Adam Humphreys to the Patriots. Something is wrong. Like that, and that's kind of scary because now I'm like the stuff that you're hearing is like now people are saying people want to play for Brady. They weren't coming to play for Belichick. They were coming to play with Brady, and we don't have that anymore. We don't have Cam Newton. Sure. So if they don't get a name, who's going to be because we have no receivers. I don't care what anybody says. Our receivers they're not stars. They're not number ones. We don't have a number one. They might be twos or whatever. So what number one receiver is going to come to New England if you don't have a big name quarterback? If you don't have a Watson, you don't have a Stafford, and you give me a rookie or you say we're going to plug you in with Sam Darnold, you're not getting a stud receiver here. Unless you're going to throw a lot of money at him to get him to come. And Belichick doesn't like throwing a lot of money.
Unless it's Garoppolo, and if he gets cut and he would come back, I would think. He would already be familiar with it.
Yeah, but again, then you're going to be paying big money. Like that, you save money on the quarterback, but you're going to spend it on getting a stud receiver. You're going to have to spend somewhere.
Yeah, so, but they do have a lot more in the cap than they did that last year.
So
they're
absolutely.
In prime position to sign somebody. We'll have to do another segment where who the free agents are and who would you like to see, just generally speaking, who the free agents are that you would like to see come to the Patriots. I don't have a lot of high hopes, and I'm sure most people don't in the draft because Belichick just cannot draft offensive players. He can't. He does not know how to evaluate talent at the wide receiver position or the running back position.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That is just. It's gotten to the point now where it's just comical. It's just like you can't. I mean, I can understand if he drafts a receiver or a running back here and there, and they don't work out. But then you see all the receivers and running backs that come after them that have turned into like these great players. And it's like, what the hell? Like you could have had DK Metcalf. Like you could have had all these guys. Like what the hell's going on?
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Sony Michel. You could have had Nick Chubb. it's just that's the frustrating part of it. So I'm not holding out hopes that he's going to find that number one receiver in the draft unless he trades up, and he never trades up. And in fact, if anything, he
And
trades down.
yeah,
I'd
he
love
won't
for
trade
him
up.
to try to go in the top 5 and get that guy Devontae Smith from Alabama. That would be an insane pickup at the wide receiver. So
I don't put my hopes in it. I think he likes to pick up big free. He'll get a free agent. I just think, but he's gonna get a working project, like a project.
yeah.
It's frustrating as a Pats fan, and
Yeah,
I know.
that's why I said, this last year was this year, and it was like, I'm willing to look past it and say, all right, whatever. It was just one of those wacky years. Let's give another year. If we're still sitting here next year and talking about how the Patriots missed the playoffs, another year with Cam Newton playing terribly, being one of the worst offenses in the league. Like, if we're sitting here again next year talking about this, then I would say, okay, now it's time to like let's what are we doing here? Then
Yeah,
I could see Kraft stepping in and being like, look,
but
two
I
years in
just
a row now, like I can't let this continue to happen.
yeah. So I just want to throw this last thought on it before we wrap up. I got to say, if Belichick doesn't do something this year, I think it tarnishes his legacy because I think it will say maybe it really was Brady. Maybe it wasn't Belichick all these years. Maybe we always try to give it like balance, like it was both of them. But if Belichick can't draft, right? Like he's like supposed to be this brilliant guy, and he still can't put a product without Tom Brady on the field. Then I'd have to say I might be on that side too. Like there's got to be pressure on him. Like, dude, this is your legacy. Like if you can't put a team together, a
Mhm.
functioning team, you don't have to be like a Super Bowl winning team. But if you're a below 500 team again, can't make the playoffs, there's gonna be a lot of fingers like, yeah, we were right. It isn't Belichick. It isn't Belichick's system. You just had the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL that carried you all this time.
Yeah, I could see that. But I think that's where I think a lot of people will say that if we have another year like this, and people are saying it now. They're like, oh, Bell, it was Brady all the time. See, like Bell,
Yeah.
it was like people are saying it now, and that's the media's overreaction. But I don't think that would be a little bit of a stretch for me. Like if this happened, say the rest of Belichick's coaching career, right? If he coached another 3-4 years and nothing comes of it in the next 3 or 4 years, then we could look back, I think, and say, yeah, it looked
Yeah,
like
but
it
you're
was
forgetting
Brady.
his years in Cleveland, John. He wasn't a great coach in Cleveland,
Yeah, but that's
and
not
and
fair
he
to,
and he and he was a coach before the Pats, before Brady started. Like he did have a year under his belt, right?
yeah. That was a long time ago, though. A lot of coaches come into a situation and they fail, and then they come back, and then they end up becoming great
All
coaches.
right. I'm just saying.
It happens
I'm
to a
not.
lot of
I'm
people.
not saying it's right. I'm just saying his
Yeah,
legacy. People are going to point to it and say,
and I
"Well, he
think
was great with Brady, but
I
before Brady and after Brady, that
yeah.
bracket, it doesn't look good, John."
It's too it won't look good in a couple more years. I think you gotta let the process play out, because it's not like you can have a guy come in and turn it. Look at all the great coaches around. Andy Reid has had bad seasons. Mike Tomlin has had bad seasons. Like all these guys that are considered like some of the best coaches in the league. I don't think Tomlin's that good of a coach anyway, but I think you can't just say like the 1 year is done and say, oh, his legacy is tarnished because of the one
I
year
just
that
said
Brady won.
because of his ego. His ego. He has an ego. His legacy is important to him. He plays for records. He keeps trying. He worries about his legacy. I just can't imagine that he doesn't feel the pressure. I got to make a
Oh, I'm
splash this
sure.
year.
I'm sure there is pressure on him. I'm
Yeah,
sure there is.
that's my point. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's right. I'm just saying with that there's got to be this thing in the back of his mind, like I got to prove
hmm
it's not just
Oh,
him. You
but
know,
I think too, and I think I might have said this a few podcasts ago. Whereas it was the right decision. I think I know everybody sees Brady having a great year. They're back in the Super Bowl. Some people are like, oh, he should have stayed. Like, he wasn't going to stay. I think it was mutual both ways. I think it just got to the point where it's like Brady's got to move on, Belichick's got to move on. If Brady ends up winning the Super Bowl this year, regardless of what happens next year, if he plays another year, right? He won his Super Bowl without Belichick, and then say 2-3 years down the road, when Belichick has enough time to build up the Patriots again, and then he wins a Super Bowl, right, without Brady, what are people going to say? It's like, why can't we just say they both deserve the credit for all the success over the years. Now, granted, you're right. If Belichick doesn't win anything the next few years, and in fact, it'll even be more to the point if they don't make the playoffs and they don't win the division, like it just nothing ends up happening the next 3-4 years. I'd be with you. I'd say, you know what? Maybe it was Brady. Maybe it was Brady all those years that kind of carried his ass, all that success, So yeah, there is pressure. I'm just not ready to say it yet, like right now.
And I agree. I don't think you should. I like I said, we're just talking like there's pressure on him. But we'll wrap it up there because let's just wrap it up. We could go all night on this going back and forth. We'll save that for our third man. I'm sure he's going to listen to this and he'll have his views and comments on it because he's this is one of his favorite topics to dive into. So
let's hope he's around next week and not in Tampa. Well, then again, he could be in Tampa, and that would actually be kind of exciting.
Yeah,
to have him on
you can dial in from Tampa. Give us boots on the ground. Now that is a podcast delivering content. We'll have boots on the ground. So I love it.
Yeah. Nothing will be open down there. There'll be nobody there. But hey, he'll be there.
If anybody can find trouble, it's our man Jarvis. He'll find a way to have a good time down there. He's you know what? He'll just have to bring R3 with him and get into some trouble down there. Mm-hmm. So I always thought Jarvis was a bad influence, but seeing you and R3 together over the weekend, I'm starting to think maybe we're mistaken. Maybe R3 is the cause. But at the end of the day, I think it really is you, Big Meat. Anybody that parties with you, it pays a price.
That's
so
true.
It's a long night.
Well, Jarvis wasn't there. So
no.
Imagine if Jarvis was there.
But he would have been. He would have been there the whole night with you guys. Mm-hmm. So he's a trooper. All right. We'll wrap it up right there, guys. Have a good night. Again, it's another podcast. We're trying to drop them every Wednesday. So enjoy this one and look forward to our Super Bowl preview with our third man next week.